Stormy, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
You do not have to do this. I was very surprised that you agreed to do it, but I've been really looking forward to talking to you for a long time. I guess I mostly just want to know how the last few weeks have been. This has been a many-year saga for you, but this is a qualitatively different time. Since the conviction, it's been a few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a lot. It's been intense. And I think that part of that comes from my mistake of, in my mind, thinking that this would be an ending, that this would be the light at the end of the tunnel. This was the what I was working towards, that it would be like a movie when the judge hits the gavel, the credits roll, and it would be tied up in a nice little gift bow, and it would be done. But that's not how real life works. Mm-hmm. And my friends were, celebrating and sending me messages and texts. Not just friends, like everybody, people who were happy that the verdict came down and it was over. But meanwhile, I knew that for me it was just getting started, because for every person that was excited and thrilled and congratulating me, there was somebody else that was very upset.
Yeah.
And it just poured gasoline on some of that stuff that I had been going through the entire time. And it's kind of common knowledge now that a lot of the people were doxxed. I know that Cohen was doxxed. They're trying to dox jurors. The judges were doxxed. I was doxxed. And I know that it's directly related because it happened while I was literally still on the stand.
What's the consequence for you of having your address out there?
My mailbox was destroyed. My animals have been injured. My daughter can't go outside. There's press and looky-loos out there. I'm afraid to go outside. I'm afraid to go out and mow the lawn. I can't go anywhere. I'm afraid of being followed.
Yeah.
The death threats are so much more graphic and detailed and brazen. Like, people don't care. And it's scary, and leading up to the trial was hard enough, like flying up here repeatedly and sitting in the rooms and going through things and reliving all these terrifying moments. The only thing that kept me going, I guess, was thinking that there was an end in sight.
Yeah.
And there's not.
Is there any sense of, vindication? This obviously, Trump being convicted, this is not a case that you brought. This is a case that prosecutors brought. You were brought here as a witness to testify for it. You were subpoenaed to testify. You had no choice about it.
No.
Again, not your case. That said, the way the case was presented to the jury, the prosecutor described to the jury in his closing argument, Stormy Daniels is the motive, saying how crucial your testimony was. Your testimony was not only riveting, it was absolutely integral to the case. Does the verdict sort of feel like a vindication to you, at least in the sense that the story is straight now, that the jury has agreed that he was wrong when he called you a liar?
Yes, but no. I don't understand. Life is not fair. And I am getting constantly attacked. It was called the Stormy Daniels hush money trial, and that's not what it was. It was about falsification of business records. And I was just one thing, but I was the most exciting part, and I was the one that took the stand. I was the one that I think testimony made such an impact. There were so many other people they could have called. They didn't call Karen McDougal. So it was vindicated. When he was found guilty, for that brief moment, it was worth me testifying, because at first I wasn't going to, and I had to shut down my life. I was basically, by choice, sequestered. I didn't work. I didn't tweet. If you know me, that's a big deal. I didn't tweet because I didn't want anything to be misconstrued or entered into evidence and create more work for the prosecution, or get the case thrown out, or disallow me from testifying.
Right.
Did I want to testify? No. Do you know how scary that is? Especially once I got up. If I had known beforehand how nasty Susan Neckles was going to be to me, I might not have. But I also knew that if I didn't testify, that it would look like they didn't want me to, and that I was not to be trusted.
Right.
That there was a reason that they didn't want me to testify. So I knew that I had to, and that it was important. And as soon as he was found guilty, that I knew that I had done the right thing in one aspect. The other side of that is, like you said, I didn't bring these charges. I didn't ask for it. I was subpoenaed. So much of the hate mail that I get is drop the charges. I'm like, I didn't sue him. I'm getting nothing. It cost me so much to come up here and testify. I was not paid. I'm a registered Republican. Sorry.
It's fine.
Rachel's like, get out.
When you say you paid to come up here, you paid your own expenses to come testify?
Of course, multiple times. I wasn't like compensated or written a check or anything like that. I got nothing, and this has cost me so much money. I wasn't paid by anybody. My testimony that I was subpoenaed, that everybody considers me to have done this great duty and be a hero, which I'm not. I just told the truth. I was just a human being. I didn't do anything heroic. I didn't go into a burning building. I didn't, I just said the truth. And I've never changed my story, despite what other people said. Go back, look at interviews online from 2019, 2020, 21. My story hasn't changed at all. It's the only one that has been consistent.
Let me ask you about that. What you're saying was very much what the prosecutor said in the closing argument. And I want to ask you about the way that the prosecution, for lack of a better word, used you, the way that you fit into their case, because I want to hear from you whether or not you agree with that. I want to sort of give you your voice to say about it. He said, the defense has gone to great lengths to discredit Stormy Daniels on her account of her sexual involvement with Mr. Trump. They shamed her. They have tried to suggest that her story has changed over the years. It has not, at least not in any way that's significant. To be sure, there were parts of her testimony that were cringeworthy, but that whole episode in the suite at Harrah's, that was uncomfortable. Some of the details about what the suite looked like, the contents of his toiletry bag, the topics of conversation, those are the kind of details I submit to you that kind of ring true. They're the kind of details you would expect someone to remember. If she didn't testify about those details, it would undoubtedly give the defense more ammunition in their efforts to call her a liar, to argue that she was never in that hotel room. Now, in his opening and in his closing, Trump's lawyer, Mr. Blanche, told you that Ms. Daniels' testimony doesn't matter. That's a bridge too far, because it's certainly true that we don't have to prove that sex actually took place. That's not an element of the crimes charged. But the defendant, Trump, knew what happened in that hotel room. And to the extent that you credit Stormy Daniels' testimony, that only reinforces his incentive to buy her silence. The defense knows that, because if her testimony were so irrelevant, why did they work so hard to discredit her? What I'm saying is that her story is messy. It makes some people uncomfortable to hear. It probably made some of you, meaning the jury, uncomfortable to hear. But that's kind of the point. That's the display the defendant didn't want the American voter to see. In the simplest terms, Stormy Daniels is the motive. That is why your testimony was not just an amazing display, but also American history, the way that fits into this. Do you agree with the way they characterized you in this case?
The prosecution?
Yeah, the way that he's saying your testimony functioned and why it was relevant to this crime.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Why would I make some of that stuff up? And, yeah, I am. And I'm comfortable with it. And for those people out there who were like, oh, they let her get up there and say whatever she wanted. And I was, keep in mind, I did nothing but answer the questions. I didn't go up there and present an essay to a spoken word theater, I answered questions. And if you don't want to hear the answer, don't ask me the questions. And for those people who said it was uncomfortable to witness or to hear, I lived it. All you had to do was hear my very PG rated version on the stand. I had to relive it. I had to say it in court in front of all these people, knowing that it would be public record, that my daughter is going to read this, that everybody's going to read this. And preparing for the case, remember, I had to go back and think about all these details and make sure that I had everything absolutely accurate. And it is important because it proves that I was telling the truth. And maybe this is too far for our conversation right now, but for all those people who like to drag me about talking about what his genitals look like, don't you think for a second that I wish there was something else I could prove? I wish he had a birthmark that looked like the state of Texas on his shoulder, or a funny looking mole. That's the only thing that proves that he did take his clothes off in front of me.
Yeah.
And you know as well as I do that if he hadn't, that I was lying, he'd have whipped his junk out a long time ago and proved that I was a liar. And it's the only thing I have. And he knows I'm telling the truth, which is why he wanted to shut me up.
As soon as you were done testifying about what actually happened in the hotel suite, Trump's defense lawyers moved for a mistrial. And they said what you had testified and the detail with which you had testified about it was going to be prejudicial to the jury. It wasn't related to the crimes that were charged, and the jury hearing that was going to make them have so much improper prejudice toward Trump that the whole trial had to be thrown out. And the judge said no to the mistrial, and the judge said, listen, you shouldn't have said right at the outset in your opening statement that the sexual encounter never happened. That set this case up so that the jury has to assess the credibility of Stormy versus the defendant.
Yeah, they put me on the spot.
And so they did that. But the detail of that testimony will be the basis of Trump's appeal. He will appeal the decision to have not called a mistrial then. That's going to be the way that he tries to get out of this conviction. Can we go over that test? Would you be willing to go through that testimony with me right now? There's no cameras in the court. Nobody's seen it.
Yeah.
I mean, I printed out that section of the transcript. Is this weird? Do you mind doing this?
I've done a lot weirder, trust me.
I walked right into that one. When you say you paid to come up here, you paid your own expenses to come testify?
Of course, multiple times. I wasn't like compensated or written a check or anything like that. I got nothing, and this has cost me so much money. I wasn't paid by anybody.
We're back to my interview with Stormy Daniels. I want to let you know that Ms. Daniels was not paid for this interview. We do not do that under any circumstances. We also came to learn over the course of preparing for this interview and reporting out the circumstances under which we were going to be discussing these matters with her. We came to learn that she is in fairly dire financial circumstances because of her confrontation with Trump, as evidenced by the fact that she recently asked a friend, a man named Dwayne Crawford, to open an emergency GoFundMe campaign to try to pay the attorney's fees that she has incurred. And as she tries to hold on to her house. For that part of it, I'm going to let Ms. Daniels here explain. So the case in which you just testified was a criminal case brought by prosecutors. You were subpoenaed to be there just as a witness. The reason that you owe Trump money is a separate matter. Right. Your former lawyer, Michael Avenatti, who is now in prison for defrauding you and other clients, yes, brought a defamation suit against Trump by you. That case was thrown out, and Trump was awarded attorney's fees.
Correct.
And that totals, to make a long story short, it totals at about $600,000 that you need to pay Trump.
Correct. And I was never allowed to give testimony. They never saw my evidence. It was never ruled whether I was telling the truth or not. So for all those people that are out there saying you lost a defamation case because they found you to be a liar or untruthful, is not true. They never even looked at the case. Other side of that is Miss Carroll, E. Jean Carroll, was called the exact same things by Donald Trump. And not only did they accept her case and let her take the stand and let her have her day in court, they've given her millions. Right. Meanwhile, my attorney's fees have racked up to over $500,000.
Do you have any means of paying that?
No. And nor do I think I should. It's not fair.
In terms of what happens next, Judge Merchan just lifted the gag order. Mm-hmm. So he's still prohibited from attacking court staff and prosecutors and their families, but he is now free to attack jurors and witnesses, which means you.
Right.
When the gag order was in place, did you benefit from that at all? Are you worried about it being lifted?
No. I mean, he's going to say what he's going to say anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of what he could say about me or what he could call me. I'm telling the truth. I'm the only one that has continued to tell the truth. I can prove everything that I've ever said. So I'm not concerned about those things he might say.
Yeah.
I'm concerned of him saying something that will make his followers come after me more.
Has that changed over time, the character of the way people have come after you, the kind of language? How has it changed over time?
The biggest thing is that they're not hiding. They used to all be bots.
Oh.
You know, now they're using their real stuff. There's, Facebook threads from people in my own community planning to do things to my house and my family. I sent some messages over when Barrett was on another show, and they couldn't even air everything they said, graphic details about how they were going to rape everybody in my family, including my young daughter, before they killed them. Very graphic things talking about a child. But most importantly, Trump is trying to make an example out of me. of anybody who dare stand up to him. And I was served again day before yesterday. And they were trying to take my partner's house. It has nothing to do with me. He doesn't even own the house, technically. It's got a mortgage. The bank owns it. I don't own that house. I pay him rent every month because I split some bills with him, but I don't own it. My name's not on the title. I didn't put any money down on this house. They're trying to take his house. They're demanding personal information about my 13-year-old daughter. I refuse to fill out that form. I am there.
Identifying information about her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where she lives, her legal name, her date of birth. Like, why do you need that about a child? So I didn't fill out that part of the form. I left it blank. And they rejected it and sent it back and are demanding that I be held in contempt with sanctions and that I have to pay this money. I have to pay $600,000 plus sanctions and be in contempt of court, which comes with a warrant possibly, because
an arrest warrant.
Because the things I said, which they found him guilty of, I also have to pay, and I'm protecting my child. And you could be the biggest Trump supporter, a woman voting for Trump, love him. Ask that woman, you gonna vote for Trump? Yeah. Do you love Trump? Yeah. How do you feel about him having your young daughter's legal name, address, and identifying information?
Yeah.
And no woman out there, I can imagine, would give that information up. They got my address, and look how quickly that happened. You think I'm going to give up the other address? Because sometimes she's with me, obviously, and sometimes she's with her father. Why would I do that?
But that's essentially, so there's basically two impasses now in terms of that money and that the resolution of that defamation case and you paying the legal fees. One is you don't have the money to pay, but two is they want you as part of that to give over that identifying information about your daughter, and you were refusing.
And even if I had the money, even if I had billions, it's not fair. Why do I have to pay it? And I'm so happy for E. Jean Carroll, but like literally the same three sentences, like liar, whack job, like con job or whatever. She gets over 80 million and it costs me over 600,000. It's going to cost my partner his house. It's going to cost my daughter her privacy for the rest of her life. It's not fair.
I feel like, Stormy, the Trump movement has destroyed or tried to destroy a lot of people for posing a threat to Donald Trump or a challenge to him. And there are, as you've been describing, millions of Americans, if not tens of millions of Americans, who have a rooting interest in all of these various efforts to confront him and expose his behavior and hold him accountable for crimes or treachery or whatever. But the rooting interest doesn't help you, right? No. Well, more than half the country is rooting for him being held accountable. The people who are actually in the middle of these confrontations are being terrorized and menaced and ruined. And overall, this system, I'm sorry to sort of put this to you, but I feel like the system is unsustainable unless the real live human people who are willing to stand up and be counted and speak the truth against him are themselves protected.
Yeah. Because you could be me.
Yes.
We could all be me. Like anybody out there. They're trying to seize property of people that I care about that's not even mine to scare me. They're trying to ruin my daughter's life before she even has a chance to live it. And they're trying to financially ruin me and take money. Because I told the truth. And I shouldn't have to do that. And I've never asked for help before. I've been fighting this by myself. You know, even the people closest to me, my best friends, my, partners, everyone else can take a break. You know, my best friend Dwayne has been my tour manager, my assistant. He's lived it the most with me, but even he gets to take breaks. He gets to get on a plane and go home and take his kids and his family to Disneyland and not think about it. I am the only person that every single day for the last 6 years, this has bled into my life. Some days worse than others. Some days I'm picking pellets out of my horse's body and getting served papers and sobbing because they're trying to, that I miss my daughter. And she's not safe if she's with me sometimes. And some days it's just things I read on the internet. But every single day, even you, you live this, you tell the story. Even you, Rachel, like there has to be moments where you've gotten to check out, at least for a minute.
Yeah.
I've never had a day like that in over 6 years.
Your work life has been severely curtailed by this. Changed. You've still got some stuff going. You've been doing comedy events.
I just came back to that last week, but same thing. The owner of the club got death threats.
Really?
I mean, I'm from New Orleans, and it's New Orleans, so she didn't care. But like, how many places are out there that I don't know about that are afraid to book me?
How are you gonna make enough money to live?
I'm not. Like, it's literally like between legal fees and not being able to work, especially because I wasn't working during, remember the trial got pushed.
Yeah.
So I had taken off a bunch of time before, and then it got extended. So there were several months where I didn't do anything. I just stopped doing my podcast because they were freaking out about everything I said. I didn't even get to tell the podcast company why I stopped talking to them, because I didn't want anything I used to be entered in, just create more work for the prosecution, basically. Or I didn't want to be taken off the witness list for all the reasons I told you earlier. You know, there's so many things. People being just afraid to hire me. Luckily, I do have some really great people. You know, I host the TV show on Out TV. And I'm starting to go back and do some stand-up comedy and things like that. But I've lost a lot more than I've made. Mostly my peace, mostly my daughter's privacy and time. Time I'll never get back with her.
Given that, are you worried about Trump potentially being elected to a second term?
Shouldn't we all be worried about that?
Are you worried about it particularly for you?
Yes.
Why?
Because I think that he will try to make even more of an example out of me. You know? And also because his followers will probably be even more bold, thinking if they do something, he'll pardon them.
In terms of his own criminal liability, he's due to be sentenced very soon. You said shortly after the verdict that you thought he should be sentenced to jail and community service, working for the less fortunate, or, quote, being the volunteer punching bag at a women's shelter. Do you still feel that way? You still think that?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, money's no object to him. For somebody else, you know, finding them a bunch of money could definitely teach them a lesson. In his case, his supporters are just going to throw it at him. And we're talking about a man who got convicted of 34, you know, and they, in one night, how much was it? Like $100 million or something was given to him when he was found guilty. I wish I could be found guilty. You know, like finding him's not going to do any good.
Yeah.
I think, you know, taking away his control which is freedom, by a jail sentence, if that's what fits it, would teach him the most, because he's so used to being in control.
Yeah.
It's not about locking him out and taking away his freedom, it's about taking away his control. Would be more helpful in this case, I think. And making him do some community service, especially with those people that he looks down upon so much.
In this part of my interview with Stormy Daniels, we're going to go through a little bit more of her testimony from the trial, but also her elaboration on that testimony, explaining what she meant. The criminal charges that were brought in this case were brought because of the means by which Trump, the candidate, tried to cover up and keep secret and disguise the fact that he had paid this woman to keep quiet about this story. Her elaboration here is important because what was it about this story that was so worth paying to keep quiet? That was worth the gymnastic, even Baroque efforts he went through to try to cover up that the payment was made. Here's Stormy Daniels. Did you notice afterwards a DVD on the side table?
Yes, it was a DVD I had given him earlier in the gift bag from the show. It was on the nightstand that I signed.
Can I just stop there for a second? This is a really stupid question, and I'm sorry. Why does an adult film company sponsor a hole at a golf tournament? Is it because it's funny because of the word hole?
You're ruining one of my stand-up jokes, Rachel.
Oh, no. I mean, here's me, total prude, unable to talk about this, that are saying, they've sponsored a hole, and I had to keep saying it over and over again. It almost killed me.
Yeah.
That's why it's funny?
I think it is. Now that you've ruined my comedy act, I can say it's basically like, so they brought myself and some of the other stars, they brought their own holes to the hole, so it's like bringing sand to the beach. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. Here all week. Try the veal. So you had given him a DVD because Wicked had brought you and other people from the company to this golf tournament. Were there lots of other adult film companies at the tournament?
No. We were the only adult film company, but we were in the gift room and everybody got to sponsor a hole. See, I still can't even say it without laughing. It's kind of genius.
It's
really.
Inherently funny.
It is
very good.
It is. And so the DVD was in the gift bags, and they had brought like different DVDs, you know, of the actresses. And that one in particular was a movie called Three Wishes that I wrote, directed, and starred in. And he specifically wanted something that I had directed, which is why in my stupidity I thought maybe he really is serious about having me on, you know, The Apprentice.
Because when you met him at the hole on the golf course, you sort of immediately started talking about the fact that you don't just star in films, you've also directed.
Right. So the owner of the company was introducing everybody that was, you know, there.
Yeah.
This is my contract girl, such and such. This is my contract girl, such as this is our publicist, whatever. This is my contract star and director, Stormy Daniels. And he was like, oh, so you're the smart one, you also direct.
And that's the basis on which you had continuing conversation with him about directing and about your role in the business.
Yes.
And do you mean, is what you're saying about that, when you say, oh, stupid me, I thought that meant, by that do you mean his expression of interest in you as a director and his asking you business-related questions about the industry meant that you thought that you were having a business discussion?
That it was legit. And why it wasn't a red flag to have a meeting. And everyone's like, oh, well, you went to a married guy's hotel room. What were you expecting? Well, first of all, there's two parts to that. One, nobody knew who Melania was back then. I didn't know he was married. I knew that he had famously been divorced from his wife before because everybody saw that scandal. Did anybody in 2006 know the word Melania Trump?
They had been married just the previous year.
But nobody knew. Like, it wasn't a thing. I didn't know.
It was a famous thing,
I didn't know he was married until he told me. So there's that. Second, it wasn't a hotel room. When people think hotel room, they think of the hotel rooms that 99% of people have only stepped foot in, which is where you walk in and there's a bed and a dresser and it's a hotel room. This was a room that was bigger than my apartment. It had a dining room, a living room, 2 bedrooms. If you had told me that it was a hotel room and you didn't know it was a hotel room, I wouldn't think it was like an apartment. Mm-hmm. Those of us who conduct business at conventions or things like that, don't think twice about going to someone's suite that has a conference table in it and a table. People like to be like, oh, you knew what you were getting into. No, I've also gone to 100 other meetings in rooms exactly like that nothing bad happened.
Prosecutor says, this is almost the end. When you were leaving and you went to leave, what, if anything, did you do or say?
He said, we have to get together again soon. He went to kiss me goodbye, and I just left as fast as I could. You know, that was it.
Did he say anything to you about talking again?
Yes. He said, we should get together again. We were fantastic together. I want to get you on the show. And that was it. He didn't give me anything. He didn't offer to pay me or anything or a cell phone number, nothing like that.
Did he ask you to keep your encounter with him confidential?
No.
Did he express any concern at that point about his wife finding out?
No.
Did you end up having dinner in his room that night?
No.
You said it was dark out when you left?
Yes.
And do you recall how you got back to your hotel?
It was a cab.
After that night, did you tell anybody else about what happened?
Yes.
Just give us a sense of the people that you told and what you told them.
I told very few people that we had actually had sex because I felt ashamed that I didn't stop it, that I didn't say no. A lot of people would just assume, they would make jokes out of it. I didn't think it was funny. I didn't want to hear about it or assume that I was a paid prostitute, which I wasn't. So I told very few people. I also didn't want it to get back to anybody that I was dating.
So the overall picture, in terms of your real life, not just in terms of this case, is that this is a situation where you thought there might be a legit business reason to talk to this man who's more than twice your age, who you had no intention of sleeping with. Right. He turned it into a sexual encounter. You did not want it, and you did not feel good about it, and you were embarrassed about it when it was over.
Yeah.
Having to recount this in detail in order to rebut his characterization of you as a liar. Even though you've told this story in a lot of different venues and you've told this under oath, this is the testimony from the trial, it seems like it's still not an easy thing to talk about.
No. because I have to do it over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
And I'm not, and I think about how hard this must be for a rape victim, like for somebody who was like physically assault, like at least they get to just say it once, hopefully in court and to a prosecutor, and they don't get to read about it every day.
Yeah.
Like I just feel so terrible for those people. Now I understand why a lot of people never come forward.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.